r/AskReddit. What is the funniest lie to tell kids? When we were in the car and it was raining, my mom would wait for a bridge or tunnel, and as we approached it, she would tell us she was going to make the rain stop in 3.2.1. She told us she could only make the rain stop for a minute because it made her so tired. My siblings and I were convinced she was magic. My dad made the traffic lights turn green. I asked why he waited a few minutes before using his power, and he said it's important to let others have a turn and go ahead of you. GG magician. My friend's parents told her that moose weren't real growing up. Like unicorns and moose were both fictional creatures. When she got to high school, someone was talking about seeing a moose and she thought they were trying to be funny, and basically she found out at 16 that moose are, in fact, real. When she went home to tell her parents, her mom was in tears of laughter. So yeah, probably telling your kid growing up that a very existent animal is a fictional creature. My friend did not believe red pandas were real until I took photos of them at our local zoo. Despite photos also being readily available online, she said they were photoshopped raccoons, a new fantasy creature known as the video game raccoon. I convinced my kids I was a GD. I waved my right hand to turn up the volume on my car, while secretly using my left hand to turn up the volume with the steering wheel controls. I did the same thing with the electronic controls for my seat. When they challenged me to do something else, I replied that I had already done too much, because a GD should never use the force for trivial things. Can you use the force to make traffic lights turn green, while definitely not watching the cross streets light out of the corner of your eye? Oh, good suggestion. Me, how old are you now? Kid, 6. Me, wow. When I was your age I was only 9. It's great to see the very puzzled look on their faces. Reminded me of a Shel Silverstein poem. When I was your age, my uncle said, "How do you get to school?" I said, "By bus." And my uncle smiled. When I was your age, my uncle said, "I walked it barefoot 7 miles." My uncle said, "How much weight can you tote?" I said, "1 bag of grain." My uncle laughed. When I was your age, my uncle said, "I could drive a wagon and lift a calf." My uncle said, "How many fights have you had?" I said, 2, and both times I got whipped. When I was your age, my uncle said, "I fought every day and was never licked." My uncle said, "How old are you?" I said, 9.5. And then, my uncle puffed out his chest and said, "When I was your age, I was 10. I like this a lot, because the moral is your uncle is a ducking liar, which is universally true. That your ears turn purple when you lie. My best friend's mom told her this when we were little, and she covered her ears or took down her ponytail every time she lied until she was 8. I remember discovering mirrors at 8 too. You lie to yourself in the mirror? When me and my brothers were kids and complained about something, my dad would go to the phone and say hello, complaint department, and describe our grievance. He said the complaint department for everybody was in Calgary and was run by someone called Chief Awakanoke, and he was getting tired of our complaints. I believed that for the longest time. But did Chief Awakanoke ever do anything to resolve your complaints? Much like the real chief? Probably not. My sister told me that yellow leaves tasted like bananas and brown tasted like chocolate. I apparently went and ate leaves, but came back and told her they don't taste how she said they would. She told me I must have eaten a bad batch, so I continued to try find and eat these tasty leaves. Too bad you couldn't find a star leaf. Those things looked amazing. Land Before Time. The grass Spike ate when he hatched also looked pretty good. My wife and I have convinced our 6-year-old that you can only go to Chuck E. Cheese if you're invited by someone else for a birthday party. I guess kind of like the Freemasons. So far, none of his friends have asked for a Chuck E. Cheese party. Edit, for those pointing out that you have to ask to be a Freemason, not wait to get invited. That's the joke. Point JPG. I'm like comparing waiting to get asked versus asking. But wait. Then how do people start Chuck E. Cheese parties if you can only go to the parties? They have to be invited to one and then just stay after. The ice cream truck only plays music when it's out of ice cream. My neighbors told their kids it was the broccoli truck. Let's get this straight. Do you mean it isn't? Unplugs the joystick. You control the badge eyes. I remember my brother thinking he was smart by letting me be second player in Duck Hunt. Turns out the controller controls the ducks. And you can't hit them if they constantly flip left and right between two sprites. Mwahaha. Jamie and a friend were trading off on Duck Hunt. And his younger cousin showed up and asked for a turn. I told him that you can be the ducks and handed him the controller. I thought I was lying. But man did those ducks get hard to shoot. Had to try it for myself. My friend said he was once in the car with his family and they drove past an industrial plant. Smoke was billowing out of a chute, as they do at these plants. He asked his mom what it was and she told him it was the cloud factory and those were the clouds being released into the sky. He said he honestly thought clouds were man-made for a better portion of his life. I always thought it was some dude's job to wake up before everyone else, strap on a jetpack, and make the clouds himself. On days it was cloudless it was his day off. And that man was Albert Einstein. That if they don't eat their vegetables they won't be able to poop and they'll explode. That one's more of an exaggeration than an outright lie. I forget how it started. But my husband, boyfriend at the time, was trying to convince his 4-year-old brother that his feet were going to fall off. The lie got more and more elaborate, like explaining how he'd have to learn how to walk around on his ankles until his adult feet came in, etc. He was skeptical. Even when I agreed that it was true. That everyone loses their baby feet before their adult feet grew in. At the time their house was being upgraded from dial-up internet to DSL. And the phone tech was wandering in and out. He happened to come in towards the end. And said, "Oh yeah. I remember when I lost my baby feet. Took a year for my new ones to come in." Little brother's face fell immediately because it must be true if the stranger was corroborating. He ran out of the room to tell his mom, yelling, "But I like my feet." And we all laughed. Even his mom, when she found out. He's an adult now, and my husband and I still razz him about it when we see him. Edit. Husband reminded me about the part where he yelled about liking his feet. Phone tech is a real MVP here. For real. It takes a special type of person to walk in, see this child's face and immediately play along. No information given. I told my 7-year-old sister that if you lick your fingers and wipe it off in your ear you will have way better hearing. And when she did it, I talked a little louder and raised the volume on our TV when she wasn't looking. She did this every day till her teacher said that it wasn't true. TL. Doctor convinced my sister to wet willy herself for a week. I used to hold my feet up in the air and tell my sister to smell my socks because I stepped in candy. She fell for it way more times than I expected. Sometimes it would take some convincing as she was a little dubious from previous episodes. What did you do to convince her? My baby sister was 4 when I was 20. One day it was storming very hard. Very loud lightning. Sister was terrified, but eventually fell asleep. While she was napping I had to run out into the rain for a bit and was absolutely soaked. Maybe 10 minutes later it stopped raining and my sister woke up and saw me and asked why I was so wet. I said, "Well, since you were so scared, I went and fought the storm. I won." And pointed outside. She ran to look. Saw it was clearing up and the utter awe in her face when she looked back at me. I was her hero for a day. Too cute. As a child, my parents told me if I did something bad I was going to baby jail. I believed in baby jail until I was like 12 years old. If I started crying in a public place my dad would say, "Mary, stop that. You don't want to go to baby jail, do you?" And then I would just scream louder, like I don't want to go to baby jail. I was kind of a well-behaved kid until I realized baby jail wasn't real. Then I turned into a teenager and they told me that juvenile detention was a thing and I didn't believe them. Edit. I never went to juvie. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. And that's why I stole that car, Your Honor. that the human body is only allotted so many words a year. And if you talk too much now, you might not be able to talk for the rest of the year. Also, it has a limited amount of energy, and if you exercise, you are draining it. Like battery. Fuck that, my kids are gonna be fucking ripped. I was at my friend's and his 5-year-old nephew was over, and he stole my friend's phone. So me thinking it would be funny go, hey Brian, I'm gonna have to call the invisible cops on my invisible phone. So he starts laughing saying no you won't. And I pretend to hold my invisible phone up to my ear and go hello? Invisible cops? Yeah, Brian is stealing his uncle's phone. Oh, you'll be here in 5 minutes to take him to invisible jail? Okay, I'll keep him here. Immediately he starts freaking out crying. And that was where his life on the run began. That the toy monster steals their toys at night. Specifically the ones that aren't put away. Oh. We have one of those. It's called the dog. It doesn't steal as much as it brutally mangles toys to uselessness. Don't get beagles unless you like having everything get eaten. I tell mine that Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter. Then showed them the book and pictures from the movie. It is hilarious to watch them argue with people. I've heard family tell them there is no such thing as vampires. Their response? Because Abraham killed them all. Duh. It's great. Update 1/23/18. They figured it out after bringing it up in class. My youngest brought it up and was corrected. She's very good humored and laughed when she told me. So my daughters found it funny. This is funny now, but someone is gonna get picked on in school. That's actually a great lesson. People are going to give you false information with supporting evidence. I work in a giant dome theater in a museum. So we see a lot of kids. For a while, we had a movie called Great White Shark. Whenever a kid asked if it was scary, I'd say no. The movie isn't scary. Now, when we fill the theater up with water and release the live sharks, that's scary. Does it slowly fill up while people are engrossed in the film, or is it one of those busted main type floods? Worked at same museum. Can confirm that it filled slowly. Source: I'm shark theater expert. When my youngest was in infant school, aged 5, 7, I could see his playground from our living room window. And when he came home from school I used to say things like, "Did you have a good game of football after lunch today?" Or, "I saw you playing tag with Steven." He used to be amazed, and I just used to say mums know everything. This lasted for a couple of years and now it's a family joke, but it's changed to Nana knows everything. That seems an odd age range for something called infant school. In the UK it's the normal age range for infant school. Then 7, 11 for junior school and 11, 18 for high school. My little sister used to get upset when I wouldn't take her to PG-13 movies. I told her they were called PG-13 because only 13 people could see them at a time. And we were too late because the 13 people had already gone in. That's actually surprisingly plausible. At least for a kid. Personal group. 13 inches. Maybe? I'd probably have believed it when I was a young'un. I read about a father who told his daughter she was half human, half mermaid. But she had the top half of mermaid and bottom half of a human. Maybe not the funniest, but it's sure cute that they get to believe they are half mermaid. That's pretty clever. When my daughter was 4, she decided she really wanted a horse. I told her that, since horses eat money, and I don't earn all that much, we simply couldn't get one. She believed that horses actually ate money until she was 14. Then she called me an asshole. In my defense, I have a cousin who has horses, and given how much she spends on them, I'm convinced to this day that they do actually eat money. I had a horse. It would have been cheaper if he'd just eaten money. I miss that asshole, though. That's the one thing you miss. If you put a piece of ham in a DVD player, it will show you a short film about pigs. Also, that Uncle Jeremy's vodka drinks are like juice boxes for adults, but deadly to children. Jeremy, being a harmless soul who hits the source a little hard when he's not busting his ass as a lawyer, showed them the most fun afternoon of their lives. A non-stop cavalcade of games, candy, soda, and more games. All in the sunshine. Surrounded by their family. By a lakeside. Jeremy sounds like a legend. They have 11 fingers. Have them count the fingers on one hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the other hand count backwards from 10 on each finger. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. What is 5 plus 6? Watch them stare at their hands. Or, you count them as 1, 2. Skip these 3. Move on to the other hand. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lastly the ones you skipped. 9, 10, 11. I had a pause at this. When I was little, I built a Lego remote control for the TV. My dad was like, "Hey, see if it will change the channel." I kept hitting it. Nothing. All of a sudden, a few channels change and I'm screaming and jumping up and down. Then it stopped working. My dad goes, "That was magic. Awesome Lego remote. Thanks, Dad."